My dad is cheating on my mom, and I don't know what to do anymore. My parents have been married for over 17 years, and they had me 1 year after their wedding. I have two younger siblings, one who is 4 years younger than me and another who was born last year. Both of my parents are in their mid-40s, and my father runs his own business. I do not particularly like my father because he has never treated my mother well. I have had several conversations with my mother about this, and while she has the courage to express herself, she lacks the courage to leave him. It all began one morning when I looked at my father's phone. Generally, I wouldn't have a reason to do that, but he had mixed up our email accounts. I requested several times for him to hand me his phone, but he refused. Since I really needed it, I woke up early and accessed his phone to check his email. It is worth noting that he never had a passcode or lock on his phone because he believed they were unnecessary. During that time, my mother had noticed him receiving calls very late at night. She must have heard me rise because she came over to me while my father, a heavy sleeper, remained asleep. She asked me to check his messages, and when I did, I found multiple texts between him and women I had never met. Later, we discovered that these women worked under him. He owns the business, and these women were aware that he had a wife and children. I am not defending them, I am simply stating the facts. My mother was stunned and did not handle it well, which was entirely understandable. Every time she attempted to confront him, he would raise his voice or snatch his phone away. She took several screenshots, but he outright denied everything. A few months later, she somehow got the woman he was involved with fired with the help of my uncle, who is also part of the business. My mother informed my grandparents about what was happening, but surprisingly, they did not react much. I do not have a strong relationship with my parents, and I have not confronted my father regarding any of this. I do not even want to see him. Initially, I tried asking him about it and showing him the screenshots, but he would just start making excuses, which would lead to him taking my phone away. A few weeks later, I noticed my parents arguing more frequently, and my father had set a passcode on his phone. I figured it out easily, and once again, my mother discovered several conversations. At that time, my father began staying out late, ignoring my mother's calls, and refusing to disclose where he was or whom he was with. I could see it was consuming my mother from the inside. One night, I jumped out of bed after hearing her scream. It was around 4 a.m. I rushed to their room, and my father walked past me to sleep on the couch. My mother was sitting on the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. I hugged her and cried alongside her because I did not know what else to do. Through her tears, she kept saying that he was asking her to leave the house. My mother is a housewife, so leaving would not be easy. That night, she cried herself to sleep but still ended up massaging my father's feet and lying next to him. I begged her to stop doing that and to ignore him, but she insists on trying. He does not physically abuse her, but sometimes I see him acting as though he is about to. A few days later, my paternal grandparents arrived when he had stayed out late once again. They attempted to reason with him, but he would not listen. A few months later, he hired a secretary who, unsurprisingly, was a woman. She does absolutely nothing, and whenever my younger sibling and I visit, she tries to impress us with her charm. She acts politely, but I have seen the conversations between them. It is also apparent from the way he behaves around her, asking us to share our food with her, which he bought for me and my sibling, allowing her to wear his slippers, and permitting her to take days off whenever she wishes. Recently, he has started spending nights away, and my mother discovered that he was staying in random hotels. When she confronted him this time, he claimed that he had apparently married another woman. But when my grandmother asked him about it, he denied it, saying, "What would be so wrong if I wanted to marry again?" I despise him to such an extent that I cannot even articulate it. Both of my tutors are female, one is married and the other is not. The married teacher, whom I will refer to as Miss A, wanted to purchase some clothing from my father's business and even offered to pay. However, he never provided them to her. Meanwhile, my unmarried teacher, Miss B, is very calm, quiet, and keeps to herself. My father saw her once and had the audacity to tell my mother that he found her attractive. After that, I started studying with her at strange hours, either very early in the morning or in the middle of the day, just to avoid my father being home. Whenever my tutors come over, I lock my door. One morning, after Miss B left, my father woke up and asked me to inquire if she wanted any clothing from his business. Seriously. Missa has been asking for months and he ignored her, but suddenly he wants to offer Miss B items? Everything just keeps getting crazier, more disturbing, and utterly repulsive. All of this eventually caught up with my mother, and she began losing sleep over it. She tried everything, taking better care of herself, and doing everything she believed my father would appreciate. But it is incredibly challenging when she also has a 1-year-old to look after. I do not even understand why they decided to have a baby at such a difficult time. Do not get me wrong, I love my sister dearly. After some time, my mother became so exhausted that one night she collapsed. It was probably the first time in a long while that I saw my father genuinely panic about her. I was trembling as I watched him hold my mother's unmoving body on the floor. He was on the verge of tears. After that day, he began paying more attention to her, but I knew it would not last, and I was right. My grandmother eventually gave up and told my father that it was acceptable if he wanted to marry again, but he should at least look for another woman. Is she serious? Is she out of her mind? My father responded, "What's wrong with the secretary?" That is even more irrational. I do not witness any of these conversations firsthand. I do not even want to leave my room nowadays. My grandmother tells me about them. My mother is incredibly patient and strong, but she is human after all. My father reverted to his old behaviors, and they argue more than ever now. I hate to admit it, but it is starting to affect me. I am trying to concentrate on my studies, but all of this is impacting me. I just want peace for my mother. Tonight, my mother dragged me out of my room and pushed me into the living room. This brute was sitting on the sofa, smoking. My 1-year-old sister was sitting right next to him. Even my uncle, who smokes, does it outside or on the balcony because it is obviously harmful for us children. But this man had the audacity to look at my mother and shrug. My younger brother stood next to me and I felt my stomach drop. I said, "Fine, give me that. I would like to smoke too." I took the cigarette from him, but my mother beat me to it. She snatched it and took 2 puffs, glaring at him. I eventually pulled her away. She has tried everything. She stays up late for him, pleading with him to come to bed, but he just insults her and continues watching television at 3 a.m. I am currently giving mock tests for my upcoming board exams, and I just feel like crying and hugging myself. I do not truly have suicidal thoughts, but I cannot deny that I have had thoughts regarding it. Do not worry. I will not put my mother through that. My grandmother told my father not to pull stunts like this because they would affect my studies, which they are doing. Every morning, my father asks me to eat more and brings me snacks, but I can only nod and avoid looking him in the eye. I have always been the one my friends turn to for support, but I do not open up in return. I feel as though I have been bottling everything up. I did speak to Missa about this, and I believe my mother has vented to her friends as well, but all I want is to be able to cry and let everything out. I know this is lengthy, but it is my first time writing here. Please offer any advice you may have. I apologize for taking up so much of your time, but thank you very much for reading. Story 2. My F/25 boyfriend, M/23, did nothing for my birthday or Christmas. I told him I don't want to do anything for Valentine's, but I'm regretting it due to my reasoning. Do I tell him my reasoning? My boyfriend, male, age 23, did nothing for my birthday or for Christmas. I informed him that I did not want to celebrate Valentine's Day, but I am regretting that decision. Should I explain the reason behind my statement? It is our first year together. I purchased a gift for my boyfriend for his birthday, and for Christmas, I created something that took me about 12 hours to finish. I presented him with the gift on Christmas and he enjoyed it. That was essentially the end of it. The following day, I mentioned that it bothered me that he did not get me anything or even acknowledge the occasion. I would have understood if he had said, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I didn't realize we were exchanging gifts." That would have been acceptable to me. I explained that I recognized we had not discussed it beforehand. I never asked if we would be exchanging Christmas gifts. It is our first year together. Neither of us has dated much before. We are both adults in our mid-20s, both neurodivergent and reluctant to date anyone for a long time. So, I simply did not think to ask. I told him I was wrong to assume we would exchange gifts, but it still hurt me. Moving forward, I would like us to exchange gifts. He apologized many times but also mentioned that since my birthday was so close to Christmas, he thought we would just choose one celebration. I explained that, coming from a family with many birthdays around Christmas, Combining gifts is not a good idea unless discussed first. It feels as though one day is overlooked. He said he understood and promised to make it up to me for my birthday, which was a week later. He also explained that, in his family, Christmas is mainly geared towards children. I acknowledged that perspective and indicated we come from different backgrounds. As a couple, we will need to communicate our wants and needs. He agreed. I expressed that holidays are significant to me, and gift-giving is a love language for me. He responded that he did not want our relationship to feel transactional, the "I do this, you do that" mindset, and that he wouldn't have cared if I gave him nothing at all, which annoyed me. It made me feel as though I was being materialistic. However, he admitted he could tell he disappointed me, felt ashamed, and promised to do better. I reassured him that it was just a misunderstanding. Overall, we had a positive discussion. On my birthday, late that night, he asked me, "Hey, I haven't finished your gift. Do you want it now, or would you prefer to wait until part 2 is complete?" I said I would wait because I understood he was busy, and making something takes time. I assumed we were talking about a few days, perhaps a week or two. It has been over a month. I heard nothing further after that day. I believe he might have forgotten or perhaps was working on something he was not satisfied with. I am unsure. Valentine's Day is approaching, and I told him I did not want to celebrate it, suggesting it was not important to me. However, I have recently realized that it is not that it lacks significance. It simply made me feel upset when he did nothing for Christmas or my birthday, despite my putting in considerable effort for him. I did not want to invest thought and effort into something again, only to be left feeling disappointed once more. If this occurred a third time, I would seriously reconsider our relationship. Compared to before, I have now clearly conveyed to him that holidays involving gift-giving matter to me, and he had stated he would make it up to me for my birthday. This made me realize I was more affected by it than I originally thought. Growing up, I promised myself I would never find myself in a relationship where I had to plead with my partner to acknowledge holidays. I had a mother who never received any gifts from my father. She pretended it did not bother her to maintain peace, but it was evident how much it hurt her every single time. She simply did not want to stir up conflict. I asked my boyfriend if we could talk tonight or tomorrow. I planned to approach the conversation kindly and calmly. I genuinely do not want to hurt his feelings. I just need to express this. Here is a draft of what I intend to say. I believe the reason I said I did not really care about doing anything for Valentine's Day is that it made me feel upset that you did not do anything for Christmas or my birthday. I did not want to feel that way again, so I just stated it did not matter to me. Because if there are no expectations, then there is no possibility of being let down, leading to no arguments. If I had put significant effort into planning something and you had not reciprocated, that would have really upset me. I just didn't think I could handle that. I strive to be very understanding, and I dislike conflict with those I care about. Things are mostly wonderful between us in every other area. I love you and believe you love me too. Thus, discussing this makes me uncomfortable. My instinct is to allow it to pass, mainly to avoid arguments or appearing selfish. I do not want to make you feel bad. You are a good person with a kind heart. If there were a way to bring this up that wouldn't upset either of us, I would have done it earlier. However, we are currently building our future. In our first year together, we will experience many firsts. I believe we set the stage for our future now. I want to prioritize good communication and ensure you understand what makes me feel appreciated or hurt in a relationship. I do not want to leave it to chance. It is not about money or anything like that. To be honest, most of the gifts I have cherished the most in my life have been handmade or small gestures. It is about feeling known and valued. It lies in the intention behind the gift. I sense that gift-giving is not as significant for you as it is for me. It has always been how my friends and family have demonstrated their care and love to me. Therefore, receiving that from everyone else except my boyfriend has made me feel bad. So, I now ask for your insight. Am I overreacting? Should I simply let it go? I worry that I am being materialistic and greedy, but genuinely, I do not care about money. I care about thoughtfulness. I am in conflict over whether he is right that it is wrong to give gifts with the expectation of receiving something in return. Yet, I think if he told anyone in his life, my girlfriend is upset because I did not get her anything for Christmas or her birthday, they would probably tell him he is in the wrong for that. For additional context, he is very loving and kind. He has never done anything to make me feel unsafe, which is not why I am avoiding conflict. I am avoiding it due to previous trauma unrelated to him.